recording this. Gotta love her. Awesome, beautiful. So, and I love your hat. You wore that.
You.
That's one of my favorite symbols ever.
The fleur de lis? Yeah, mine as well.
Absolutely. Alex, it is such a privilege and an honor, and I'm super thrilled to have this time with you.
Oh, stop.
Oh, no. This is fabulous. I'm just going to admit everybody in here. Pardon me while I get used to this program thing here. So I have to say, this is super exciting for me because this is the launch of a new series for me where we're talking about people who are true to themselves. And I'm going to be talking to people who've spent their lives, dedicated to their mission, to anything and everything that is them, right? And without wavering, no deviating from that path, and just really, truly staying true to yourself. And I know that's something you've done for a very long time now. So I'm absolutely thrilled to launch this series with someone so dedicated to the mission that he's on, and so dedicated to us, who've been a long time getting to you or finding our way to you, or, you finding your way to us. But I wanted to introduce you to my people, my audience, and not all of them are familiar with you, but over the last few months, they've all heard about you from me. So those that aren't familiar, I'd like to introduce you to Alex Collier. And for those that are, this is him. How exciting. I know. So Alex, I want to just give you minutes to talk to us about how you started on this journey for yourself and what happened to bring you onto this path per se.
Oh, God. Well, it started at 8 years old with my first contact with Morné and Visayas. And at the time, it was just cool. It was just cool. I knew it was different. It was something I really, really wanted. My mother was not open to any of this at all at the beginning. Well, at all. My dad, many, many years later, we sat down and we had a talk at the kitchen table before I went to school. I was 16. And then it's sort of like, then it was like, okay. Then I sort of allowed it to really settle in. But I had no idea how hard it would be once I was asked to speak, to share it. Now, there were a lot of things that were shared with me when I was a kid. And I intentionally didn't want to begin talking until the 90s. Then I was kind of getting the full court press from mostly Morné. Visayas kind of stood back, and he had seen it all. I mean, he was over 4,000 years old, 4,300 years and change to be exact. So he had seen it all. And I guess maybe he was just sitting back, just watching, but he was always encouraging when he wasn't being grumpy. And we just kind of, figured he was just grumpy because he had earned it. He was 4,300 years old, So, and it was a little bit later than that I realized that he was mentoring Morné to basically take over his role. And I absolutely love and adore them both. But Morné's become a brother in so many ways. And a lot of things were shared, and one of the things that was really important to me is that growing up in upstate New York, Westchester County, Is that feedback me or you?
I think it's you.
Okay,
don't hear
I don't know why I'm having it. I'll move this a little further. There were a lot of kids, a lot of friends that we all knew all over the area where we lived that were disappearing. And as and everybody knew someone who knew somebody who had a little brother or a little sister that was disappearing. There were even children missing from the hospitals. And in one particular year in Westchester County, there were 5,000 children that vanished without a trace.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, well, I could always start with that. I could always bring attention. And I knew what was happening to them. I knew they were being taken underground. And I'm like, everybody wants to know this. How could they not want to know this? And there was a lot of interest in the kids, but not that they were being taken underground. No one wanted to go there. The only people that approached me and that were supportive were New York State Police, a couple of CIA officers, and an FBI officer. They were the only ones who were interested. But everybody else was like, no, it's not happening. You're crazy. You're fruitcake, yada, 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 yada. And that's pretty much where it was at. Now, you mentioned earlier, all these years trying to get to me. Well, the reason for that is because of those early years. I did everything I possibly could to protect myself, to stay away. To use the expression "had the shit kicked out of me" is not an understatement. And I wasn't the only one. There were others. There was Carla Ruckert, David Icke. There were a few of us at that particular time who were, trying to make some headway, at least begin a conversation. And it was like screaming into the wind. Now, for me, for my particular journey, I knew many years earlier that Maureen and Passaic were also talking to 3 other people. There were 4 of us originally. 1 in Asia, 1 in Europe, and 1 in South America. And I'm thinking, this would be a lot easier if the rest of them started talking. And I could, and if that were the case, then I could, and I already had this conversation with myself, I could ease my way back out of this because it was hard. It was really, really hard. And I didn't want to involve anybody else. My dad was very, very concerned that I was going to do this. And he's like, well, what happens if the government comes after us? And these were all real conversations.
And valid questions.
And then when the others bailed out, the other 3, I'm like, oh shit, I'm screwed here. I'm screwed here. Now, having come from a large family, at one time I was the oldest of 11, and it was a years, mine, and ours thing. 7 boys and 4 girls. And I'm thinking, if anything like this had happened to any of us, would I back down? And there's no way I would. And I knew that. So it just, I just decided, okay, I'll keep at it, but I'll create a real life for myself, which is what I did. It's interesting, the interference when certain things are talked about, isn't it? Yeah, that's nothing new. I think they have an AI running in the background, and it steps on you intentionally when you talk about certain things.
Over the target, right over the target.
So what I would do is I would talk maybe once, twice, 3 times. We decided, let's try a newsletter. and see what we could do with that. And that got, you know, pounded. And then we had this guy from Washington State approach us and say, look, let me transcribe some of your VHS tapes. I know a lot of millennials don't know what that is anymore. But that was this big tape that you would put in this machine. It's the size of a brick. And that's how the recording was in those times. And bless you. And oh, is that the dog? I'm sorry. So
she'll take the
so
blessing
did,
anyway.
you know, he did do that. We sent him some tapes. This was myself and John Robinson who offered to help me and his wife Debbie to do this work in the beginning because I didn't have any idea what to do. And frankly, I was in overwhelm. We got married, starting having some babies. So we did that very naively. And several months later, I get an email from a nurse in North Carolina. And, you know, email was new then. It was brand new. We were still using pagers. Cell phones were not the norm then. And they're like, yeah, sure. So we sent them this videotape. And I get this email 3.5 months later from a nurse saying I would want to buy the book from you directly and have you sign it. So I write back and I go, you know, ma'am, what book are you talking about? And he goes, well, and then she sends me this link, and the guy who we sent the tapes to, Leading Edge Research page, Val Valerian, had created this book and was selling it, and we had no idea. And apparently we find out that this is not the first time he did anything like this, but that's what he was doing, you know? He just launched this thing on his own. So, you know, that was our introduction to exopolitics, although it wasn't called exopolitics then. It was the UFO world. And, you know, there were a lot of really genuine people trying to share their story. And there was this real sleazy energy that was moving in and out of it all the time. And a lot of it had to do with intelligence agencies. You know, they wanted to control the narrative and take down anybody they wanted who was way too close to everything that they were trying to cover up. And, you know, because I had started out talking about the kids, you know, I got zeroed right away. And you know, here we are now. Now we know that, you know, that the child trafficking and the human trafficking and all of that had to do with the underground domes and bases, the Draconians, the Orion Group, the Greys, et cetera, Dulce, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It was all about the children. There were some women involved as well, young women as well, but it was really predominantly they were targeting the kids. And then, of course, a lot of shit happens. You get the death threats. Then you get the face-to-face confrontations. And then you get the 3 men in black standing there with a list reading off all the names of the people they're going to take out unless you shut the fuck up. So it's all those things. And then there was this hiatus of 6 years where I just focused on my family and trying to build a career in aerospace. And then at some point, Mornay came back and said, okay, we need to do this. There are many things going on, which is where we are today. A lot of this has been going on for years, but it's now to get back. The men that approached you were from a program. None of them are still alive. I didn't ask. They just said they were no longer alive. So whatever threat there was no longer there. So I put my big toe in a little bit to check it out, and you know, and I started off really, really slow. And I think one of the hardest things, Brenda, is walking the two worlds.
Yeah.
Being here, trying to create a normal life in a marriage, raising children, and being in this completely other world that is so different, so unlike reality on Earth. How do you marry the two? And I can honestly say, for me, it's not like I left the third density world, but I checked out of it. And I stayed in this world.
Mm.
And there were consequences to that.
Yeah.
There were consequences. And anytime you do that, one or the other suffers, one or the other falls apart.
Absolutely.
Because, I just didn't know how to do it.
How do you balance it?
I didn't know how to do it. And there was a lot of physical contacts. And I'm like, okay, I'm already in this other reality. Why can't I just stay here? Why can't I just stay here? And they're like, no, that's not part of the deal. And I'm like, well, why isn't it part of the deal?
I'm changing the deal.
Well, the terms of the contract were never really spelled out. And of course, at 8 years old, I wouldn't have understood it anyway. So, it's always about the journey. It's always about the journey. And sometimes, we're on the path or we deviate from the path, but we never truly clarify what our life's path is going to be or what we want it to be. Sometimes we don't know to ask those questions up front. Sometimes we just don't have the clarity or the vision to actually know what we want. We just don't. So what we find ourselves is constantly in the minute, in the moment, dealing with what confronts us and then putting out the fires that we light behind us. And, that would define many of the years of my journey, is being in the moment and putting out the fires I started, behind me. And I can remember my dad at some point saying, son, and he was in Florida and he was really ill, and I was spending some time with him in Boca Raton. And he just says, sport, and that's what he would call all of us if it was one of them heart to hearts. He wouldn't be the first. It was sport. And he just said, hey, sport, there's going to be a morning you're going to wake up and all your shit's going to be together. You're just going to find that everything realigns and everything is exactly where you want it to be. And you are moving in a direction, and he goes, you just keep remembering God. You just keep remembering God. And, Dad was a devout Catholic his whole life. He was a really good man. Took me a long time to figure it out, but he really was. He knew his shit. But, like most of us, we think our parents haven't got a clue because they're not telling us what we want to hear. And, this is a very candid interview for the record. But he was right. He was right. And this is, and then, you just keep trudging. And after a while, I think one of the biggest things for me was I stopped looking what people thought. I stopped looking at the comments on the internet. I stopped reading the horrible emails. I did Art Bell just once. And maybe if I lower this a little bit. And I stopped reading Art Bell. Oh, that works better. And I did the Art Bell show once, and I couldn't believe some of the responses I got from, love all Christians, it was really shocking. It was really shocking. And I'm like, I'm so done. I'm so done. So it was from that point on, I was one and done. If I did a talk, I didn't look back. I didn't watch it. I didn't read anything. I was just like one and done, one and done, one and done. And I do that to this day, Brenda, one and done. I don't go back. I don't look at it. I don't read the comments. It's just like, okay, just move forward, keep moving forward, keep moving forward. And that's where we are today. And what, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when we started to do the webinars, suddenly all that information that goes back 30 years is now relevant today.
No,
And
right now.
it's just like, no one's more surprised than me, frankly. And that's where we are. So, I think underneath all of it, what it really comes down to is, one's love for humanity. Because I have been blessed to have an experience where I'm with another race and I am there on a starship and I'm looking down at the earth and I am privy to conversations that they are having not only with each other but with crew, and conversations and opinions and history of our race have been shared with me. I am blessed to have a perspective, that isn't just this shit show that we call our lives here. I'm blessed to have a perspective from another race, from a completely different reality, from a completely different dimension than third, their fifth density. And they look at us with this incredible empathy. And they look at us and they're like, wow, your race, and it's always our race, the human race. You have this deep drive to survive. You bear incredible hardships every day. You deal with deceit, deception, hardships, personal attacks, sabotage on every level. And yet through it all, you continue to hold out for hope. All of you strive for love, and you're bearing your children along the way.
Remarkable.
And there were many nights that I would how does one describe how does one share that grief on the one hand, and on the other, this incredible pride that, here we are, me included, none of us have a clue of really what we're doing. None of us have a clue of the trap that we've all been born into.
Mhm.
And at the same time, we have this indomitable spirit to want and to seek higher ground. And behind all of it is this love, and even those of us who have a really hard time loving ourselves, we all still want love. And at this point in my life, though there have been moments where I'm like, I'm so done, I'm so done, it keeps me going. It absolutely keeps me going. And now that all the things that are going on in the background, the white hats, the rescuing the children from the underground facilities, the shutting down of these programs and the human trafficking, I can't tell you how happy I am that finally this is happening and it's being addressed. Because without the kids, I mean, there is no future for humanity. I mean, they told me many, many years ago that any civilization that practices abortion for more than 120 years, in whatever timeline we live on, none of them have ever survived. Because what happens is that life becomes so cheap that what happens is those civilizations lose their original intent and they end up destroying themselves. And they said that there's vast ruins all throughout many galaxies of civilizations that did that to themselves because they reached the point where life meant nothing, even their own.
Disposable.
And that's not present here, though. But when I hear the military industrial complex and other countries talking about where we're just going to have a nuclear war, I mean, that's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about, is a race just taking itself out. But that's not going to be allowed to happen here. It's just simply not going to happen. So all that chatter about nuclear war is it literally just all bullshit. It's wanting to create fear and amp up the fear energy so they can, for what's left of the dark side, can feed off of it because they can't create any light themselves. They can't create anything. They need us to do it. So, now that I realize the game, I understand the game a lot more. And I know they're being taken down. I have a lot more courage. I have a lot more courage. And there's many other people now coming out, not only whistleblowers from space programs and the military industrial complex and these special access projects talking about the technology, but we also have contactees from all walks of life, from every country, that are wanting to tell their story. And, and that's awesome. I mean, that's kind of, many of us that have stuck with it, we've kind of blazed the trail for others. They don't have to hack through the weeds anymore. That's already been done. So now they can come up behind us as we step away. They can come up behind us and take humanity to the next level. And I just think that's just so awesome. And I look back 10 years ago, I didn't see today. I didn't see how this was all going to play out. I didn't know how it was going to play out. I mean, you hope and you pray and you envision. But because we have free will, you don't really know how things are going to turn out.
That's right.
So, and now I'm gratefully encouraged that we have so much assistance off world and boots on the ground, and humanity is really beginning to come out of their coma and see things. I mean, you still have your knuckleheads, but there's hope for even the knuckleheads. And that's kind of where it's at. You know, life is a river, and at times it's a roller coaster, and it drags you down. It drags you to wherever it's going to go, whether you want to or not. And one day you find yourself, standing on the banks and you're looking up, the sun's still shining, and you're years from where you were, and you're like, wow, here I am, and things are better. And I can honestly tell you that that's totally apropos to my personal experience. And I'm glad that the work suddenly has some value. Because there's a lot of wisdom in what the A's have said. And it isn't about me, it's really about them, and it's really about humanity. And wisdom is wisdom no matter where it comes from. Sometimes from the least likely of places. So there's my spiel to open this up.
It's excellent. It's excellent. It's such a remarkable life you've lived so far. And we all can say that, really. We've all lived a fairly remarkable life.
Exactly.
Boring. You were just way ahead of your time back then, just bringing forward information we were going to need now. We just didn't know when we were going to need it. And I think maybe with timelines working the way they do and free will, as you said, it was just a matter of where that information was going to slide into place and actually be what we need for the time, and I know that's now.
I lost my kids for years because of the information. And I've just recently began to rebuild that relationship with my children.
Wonderful.
And one of my sons, my oldest son, said that to me not 3-4 weeks ago. Dad, you were just way ahead of your time. And then I have the middle one who says, Dad, you haven't got a clue. Okay, I'm glad you have all the answers then. And he thinks he does, he has all the answers until he realizes he doesn't. We've all sort of been there. So.
That's right.
And then there's my daughter, who was smarter than everyone. and she's like, hey, just don't worry about it. It'll work out.
Right. Yeah.
So
that's awesome. That's good to hear. That's really good to hear. It's really challenging when we think so differently and we know our lives to be so different than the lives everybody else are living, and I mean, for instance, as a psychic medium, my family, they kind of get what I am or how I work and things, but they don't really know. They don't really have any clue. And it's, when you see things from a different perspective than everybody else around you, it does make it incredibly isolating, right? Like, because you're just so secluded and yet you're in it, and that's challenging. But one of the things I've often really, I hear a lot from my guides is, engage detachment, be in the world, but not of it,
Yeah. Be the observer as much as possible. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's key, right? Because that's where our awareness comes in. That's awareness.
Well, it also helps with your sanity.
Whatever that may be.
I mean, because, you're looking at this stuff and you're like, oh my God, what in the world are we doing? I remember Mornay said, we were talking about money, and they made me stress that do things that this would never be a business. You don't sell t-shirts, you don't sell any of that stuff. I'm like, okay. And that's been very difficult, very, very difficult to do. But I've done everything possible to make sure that didn't happen. So I said, well, I could do a presentation for you about the value of money and how it works, which is what I did. Over 3 contacts, I laid this whole thing out. And, I still have it in storage. Well, it's in the garage now. And I remember it was all over more, and they said, thank you it was very informative. And, and it didn't dawn on me till later, they knew all this stuff already. I mean, they've been watching us for years. They knew all this stuff. And then Visayas just looked at me and he's like, why do you have to pay to live on a planet you were born on? Which, of course, is not a single question any of us has ever contemplated, right? And he just nuked the whole presentation and everything I believed about money.
Yeah.
Right there, just nuked it. And it was a very sincere question. And then it was then that I realized really how the rest of the universe worked. It was not like this at all. And that was a real shift in perspective for me. One I'm still dealing with. Where everything seems to be, power and prestige, everything revolves around paper with pictures on it. And it's not real at all. It is the belief system that literally entraps and enslaves everyone.
Absolutely. It's the spell.
That's been really interesting. And sometimes I just don't know how to I don't know how to reckon it. I mean, I can put it into perspective, but unless you know how to totally live off the grid and have a piece of property that you own free and clear with no encumbrances whatsoever, that's the only way you can actually separate yourself from this system. But then there's property taxes, and they won't take corn or bushels of apples in lieu of payment of cash.
No chickens care.
So yeah, I mean, it's almost impossible or virtually impossible to be out of the system as it is right now. So,
although I would say what I've learned about commerce law lately seems to be the way. We can all work that.
Well, we're having to circle back, to the local level and everything.
Back to basics, right?
Yeah,
back to
exactly.
basics.
We've been led all way off our path. So far from the light that none of us remember what it's like to totally live in the light and to live in a state of grace all the time. In fact, most of us are so cynical that we're like, oh, that can't ever happen. That'll never happen. And that's who we are. Originally, that's who we are. It's remarkable.
Yeah. So do you see us getting back there? Do the A's see us heading that way in the future? I mean, we've got thousands of years left on this planet from what I can feel. I'm hoping that 1,000 of them are when the darkness is cast out of here and we get some freedom for a while. But what do the A's say, and what do you see about the future?
Well, they say we make it.
They
say we make it. We don't all leave Earth, but we as a civilization, we begin to migrate and travel into space, and we begin to colonize at first our own solar system and then other star systems where we will be invited to set up a colony, things like that. But we're probably talking 100 or so years from now. We have to get our act together, humanity. We have to embrace the idea we do not know who we are just yet. And that's going to take some time and some mentoring for us to realize not only what our own true potential is and the actual history of our physiology, our physicality, but to reconnect with soul, to reconnect to source in such a way and on such a level, that we understand that We all have a very, very integrated, symbiotic, holistic relationship with all things. You know, nature sees itself as a part of itself. Humanity doesn't see itself as a part of anything, not even each other. So we have some homework to do. We have some growing to do, and a lot of voluntary introspection along the way to get to that place. But we're going to be allowed to do that now that we're being freed from this matrix, this control mechanism that really just was using us as a resource, a natural resource. And you know, all of those things, as they're rolled out, those truths are rolled out, it's going to be quite the revelation for humanity. And there's a part of me that's already grieving for the pain that's coming, for the things that we're going to be learning about that were happening right under our noses that we didn't see because we were so flipped from the inside to the outside and chasing material this and material that, thinking so all that stuff's going to make us happy. And it was never going to do that, ever. And checking out from the most important thing, which is not only our own personal growth, but the relationships with others, with everyone around us. You know, wherever there's love, there's a state of grace. And we need to get back to that absolute truth, that above all is the most important thing. You know, is living in a state of grace. You know, I hope I'm here to see it. I do. I don't know. But we'll see. You know, we'll see. I mean, that's all we can do, right? Is do the best we can. And, you know, when our number's called, our number's called. And I mean, for me, the worst case scenario is I go home. Frankly, I'm not all that disappointed because, you know, right now I have some earth fatigue. I genuinely do. So, and I hear Antares has beautiful beaches.
That's nice. Yeah. I think that's I think that's something a lot of people dream of, just off this planet and somewhere nice and peaceful, you know?
Yeah, give me a break. Just a little while.
That's it. That's
it. Yeah.
Exactly. You know, you've had. I'd like to encourage some of the audience, or all of the audience rather, to check out your website and to check out the webinars you've been putting on. Your crowdcasts, I've caught the last few in a row. The Friday deals. Your words are awesome. We really do need to hear them, and it's very encouraging for most of us who are in this world in an energetic way, aware, right? Like it's one thing to be asleep and bumbling along and doing what you do. I sometimes envy those people who are still cozy under the covers, you know, because I'd like to be there myself some days. Sometimes I wish I didn't know what I know, you know.
Yeah.
But I think we'll all come to that at some point anyway. But you know, gratitude you spoke of on the Friday call. I said the first 12 minutes were absolute gold. You spoke of gratitude, you spoke of valuing ourselves and our royal DNA, you know, which is really important. And, you know, loving ourselves. That's unconditional love is everything. That's really all there is, isn't there? So would you speak to that a little bit and tell us a little bit about, you know, what we can do, what we can practice right now for these times? What's the most effective, according to off-planetaries, for us to do? Like, I mean, I think I heard you say at one point, you know, blasting light somewhere and, you know, shining light there and directing it is very important too, but just being happy. You also spoke of, you know, getting your happy on and being happy and just letting that light and that vibration be what you put out there. It's just
well, you know, like growing up, even though we had a mixed family, can you lower the volume on your end?
Mhm.
Testing.
That's better.
Testing. Yeah, that's perfect.
There we go.
Um,
Sorry about-
You know, growing up, we had a very large family. It was a yours, mine, and ours. And the holidays were always fabulous. You know, the folks, the stepmoms, they went all out at the holidays. And no, there's not many of us left, but they were the best. They were absolutely the best. And no matter what we were dealing with, no matter what was going on, when we came together in joy as a family, as a unit, it was just us. And there was so much strength. There was so much love. There was so much protection in that time, in those moments, that it would carry us on for months and months and months. So much laughter, so much teasing of each other, and just having fun that, you know, many of us have forgotten how to do that. We have forgotten how to have fun because life is just so serious. They have created this scenario on the surface of the planet where it's so dire. It's life or death. And of course, you know, when you're living in a situation like that, it keeps you completely distracted and on the outside of yourself.
Always on edge.
Yeah, yeah. Which makes you incredibly vulnerable to being emotionally manipulated. And we see it everywhere. They're just sons of bitches, you know?
You're not kidding.
Oh my God.
Our Canadian military admitted that last year in April, they decided it would be a good time for them to try out propaganda on the Canadian citizens. Openly admitted it in an article about a month and a half ago, and have been successful at it as far as I can tell all along. Yeah.
um,
But joy is everything.
no one can make you happy other than yourself.
That's right.
No one can fill those voids in yourself but you, because truly you're the only one who knows what those voids are.
Mhm.
So how can someone else know and fill those empty spaces for you that really are your own judgments? And what I mean by judgments is decisions that you made about yourself that either you made up or someone else told you. And in reality, none of that shit's true. Those people were all projecting their own shit onto you, which you then took personally. And you believed it about yourself. And if you believe it, well, then you make it true.
That's right.
I mean, and I know it sounds too simple to be true, but it is. It's really that simple, you know? And the reality is, you're all remarkable. You've always been remarkable. The problem is you didn't know it and you didn't act on it because you didn't know it. And when we all come to the realization that the system we grew up in, that started long before our parents were born, that just perpetuated itself to where we are today, the entire scenario, the entire structure of humanity that all of us have been born into was set up to not only enslave, but make us reflections of the light, not to actually be the light. Because if you are the light, you can't be controlled, you can't be manipulated, you can't be lied to, you can't be told what to do. Because if you are the light, you're completely independent of all this nonsense. And they know that. And the last thing they wanted to do was to have this humanity wake up, because we are so multidimensional, we are so intergalactic, that they were absolutely terrified of us should we wake up. And now that many of us are waking up, we're like, I get why you're afraid, because there's some comeuppance coming. Oh yeah, there's some comeuppance.
Yeah.
And they're already getting some of that. At least the ET element of it is. The
Oh,
human
good.
element that completely betrayed humanity, their day's coming for sure. And and now everybody has to realize, okay, now we have to step up. Each one of us as individuals, we have to step up, and we have to understand, one, we have to be self-empowered, and that requires work. That means you're actually going to have to work on yourself. You're going to have to wait. You have to change the way you think and the way you see yourself. And it isn't about beauty. It's about character. Okay? It's about character. 2, it's about taking care of the physical body. It's about honoring it as the temple that it truly is, the gift that all of us have in which to create and participate in any dimension. Every dimension has its own physicality. You're not ghosts just, blowing through clouds. Oh, how are you? And then you're off to something else. It is not like that. Okay. Each dimension has its own physicality. So we have to honor the body that we're in. 2, honor the relationships. What you give is what you get back. If you're an asshole, your friends are going to be assholes back to you. Or you're just going to be alone. Okay? It's really that simple. And then there is the creation element of it. What you focus on is what you create. And there is a massive responsibility to that. Because that which you call forth, that which you create, whether it's children, careers, whether it's wealth of many different types, whether it's trust and relationships, all those things that you create in your sphere that are part of you in your interaction with others and their interaction with you, all of us have an equal responsibility to honor that and to acknowledge it. And what it really boils down to is authenticity. And some of us are so jaded by hurts, betrayals, mental abuse, physical abuse, spiritual abuse. That's probably going to be the toughest one. And that may take several generations for humanity to get there, to this place where we finally become very comfortable being authentic all the time without even thinking about it. Those of us right now here who the kids call vintage, our responsibility is to do everything we can to make sure that all the information that's coming out is passed down to the future generations, that we create the structure and the ability for everyone going forward to know everything that happened. And I mean everything. So 1, it doesn't happen again. 2, we understand where we were, so we really don't want it to happen again. And 3, that we practice what is called the law of consistency. And that is that every generation not only has the equal opportunities, but better opportunities to take our civilization forward into the future. It is not where we dumb anybody down ever, because that's sabotage. And we didn't know that. But that's what it is. It's sabotage. None of the other civilizations out there that are in existence ever have done that. They understood the law of consistency. The youngest generation knows everything as well. And this way, there's no loss of knowledge. There's no loss of wisdom. And it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while because we've never been there. So the training wheels are on for all of us to figure this out. And, you know, we will get assistance. There will be some mentoring in many different ways because we have, as a civilization, tremendous value.
Mm.
You know, things that we can offer the galaxy. We have this enormous span of emotions. We have an incredible ability to create music out of nowhere. We have this incredible depth of compassion and love, and the wisdom that is on this planet that has been withheld or has been suppressed is profound, absolutely profound, because of all the experience we have with everything that we've been going through, humanity as a whole. And because of our deep connection to other star nations, 22 in particular, in regards to our genetic DNA makeup, and the fact that many of us are multidimensional souls here now, having incarnated in humanity, what we do has a profound effect on the rest of the galaxy and on other dimensions. This is a huge responsibility that we carry. We just don't know it yet. And we may not truly understand that yet until we figure out or begin to have those epiphanies about who we are. You know, and then I think those things will start to hit home, you know. I mean, just imagine any one of you listening to this actually coming to the realization and connecting with a portion of yourself on 7th density or 8th density, where you literally have an out-of-body experience where you confront and you meet yourself that's in 8th density. And you see the profound essence of who you are, staring you in the face, showing you all this love and saying, and this presence, which is you, saying to you, I cannot wait for you to come home.
Damn.
Those epiphanies are going to happen. Those moments, some people are having them now. They just don't remember them quite yet. You have to understand that, you know, how godlike we are. I mean, we were made in the essence of, you know, and we can't make dimensions. Creator does that. But nonetheless, we have made and we have built and we have are experiencing in other dimensional realms the creation process. And when you call out to yourself, when you call out to the creator, they are all obligated to help you. We just have to be open to actually receive it and stop thinking we're not worthy. You know, that was the biggest lie all of us have been told, is that we weren't worthy.
And that we were separate from our creator.
Oh my God, yeah. And you had to go through a church, a priesthood, or, well, I don't want to get started on that because they'll take you off of YouTube.
That's a whole other call, Alex.
You know,
I
mean, all that stuff, it was just bullshit.
Yeah.
And we're going to find out it, you know, there are those who are awake already and they know it, you know, but there's a significant portion of the population that isn't there yet. But you know, it was all bullshit.
Crazy.
So, and you know, not only are we worthy, we're the ones creating this reality. End of story, bottom line, period.
That's it.
You know?
Alpha and right there. You know, I've read for a lot of people over the years, and two things I have found with everybody, pretty much everybody, is two issues are common for all humans, and that is issues of trust and issues of self-worth.
Yeah.
And they're consistent. That's the only consistency we have had. And that has been their dumb us down right from word go. So we right away, you've been, twisted around and you're trying to pin the tail on a donkey. You don't even find a donkey,
What's a donkey look like?
I
Are you a
know.
donkey? No, I'm not. I'm a cow.
No, and I think we're all just ending up to be the actors here. Right?
Are you a donkey? No, I'm a kangaroo. Get away from me.
Exactly. So it's just sad, but we're getting there, aren't we? Like we've tipped this quotient.
But you already know the answer, are we? You already know the answer. Yeah, we are, because we were having these conversations. 10 years ago, there was no conversations like this.
No, not at all.
So we're definitely there. We're definitely getting there.
Yeah.
And everybody, even those with an IQ of a dinner plate, they all suspect something's wrong. They all suspect something's wrong. They can't put their finger on it, or they may trip over it before they realize it. But everybody on some level understands there's something terribly wrong here.
Something.
So that's something.
It is something. It's hope, right?
Exactly.
Helping
Exactly. Not that hope is a strategy. Not that hope is a strategy by itself. But the hope is that people will begin to really start to see and question things more and more and more. Why do we have to pay to live on a planet we were born on? Right?
Yeah. And exactly what we pay it to, right? Who's taking all that money from us?
Exactly.
That's all coming out now. We know that.
Yeah.
And speaking of money, could you just briefly, do you know much about the quantum financial system people are talking about?
I don't know any more than that which I've already shared, or that which is already out there. The quantum system, I'm sure that it is something that the space programs and the special access programs who have interacted with ETs, that they've learned that this is something that they all use out there for star travel and recording of history and everything else that encompasses their lives, which at the moment is mostly unimaginable to a lot of people. But I think parts of it, or elements, are being created and being brought to Earth to connect our current civilization, parts of our civilization, to it, so that we can begin the process of interacting with the rest of the universe.
Nice.
On a conscious level.
Beautiful.
And so what we're getting is Windows 95, basically. The window to the universe. We're getting the Windows 95 version.
Wasn't it full of?
Yeah, and so we're learning how to use the system. We're going to learn how to use the system, learn how the whole thing works, how the galaxy works, how other civilizations operate, all of those things, so that at some point when we let go of a financial system, we can fully integrate, into all that is. And because we have been isolated for quite some time. And over the years, I've used the analogy of the crab pot, of the fisherman on Santa Monica Pier. And he's, catching these crabs and he's putting them in a bucket. And a little boy walks over and he tells the fisherman, those crabs are going to get out of the bucket. He goes, no, they won't. He goes, yes, sir, see? And he goes, no, the other crabs will pull them back in. And that's exactly what happens is, if you're different, if you see something different, everybody attacks you because they don't want you to screw up their vision of what reality is. They're all comfortably numb in their little box because they have control of their little box, realizing that as long as they're painting within the lines, they're trapped, they're a slave, that the real creation, the real freedom is painting outside the lines, and it's just a question of of enlightening education and allowing people to let go of their fears and to be as creative and as expressive as possible, as long as it doesn't hurt someone else. You know, I
So
mean, we have our work cut out for us. I mean, it's not going to be a walk in the park, but it is freedom. It is freedom. It is the true definition of freedom. You know, where everything you do, there are risks and there are no safety nets. But ultimately, whenever we do that, we always end up on our feet. No matter how far we fall, we always end up on our feet, you know, and if we didn't make it the first time, what is the old Japanese saying? If you fall down 7 times, you get up 8, you know, and that's what you do. That's just what you do. You fall down 7 times, you get up 8.
that's brilliant. So do you think, I got a guide who's always all about the words. Redemption is everything when it comes to the words, because that's really how they've really put us into such a spell, as they've changed all our words around and made them mean different things and all of that stuff. But freedom, he's recently said to me, is really just the shortened version of free dominion, right? Free dominion. And we are supposed to have dominion over this land, this planet. Sovereignty, of course, is the key there. And then in that moment, when we have that and there's no more paper money and stuff, would you recommend people, look to precious metals? I mean, I know you're no financial advisor, but, is that something we could probably find value in when all this paper stuff is kind of in a bit of a mess?
Well, the paper system, the currency system we have now today is imploding, and it has to, because it literally, well, it was designed to enslave. And for those of you who don't really know a lot about it, the fiat currency, the paper money, was created out of nothing. It literally is paper and ink. And then it was loaned to countries, corporations, and individuals with interest. However, the interest money was never printed. So the only way you could pay back any debt, any loan, whether you're a country, a corporation, or an individual, was to borrow more money with interest. And here we are. Every single country on the planet is in debt over its head. Every corporation is in debt over its head. And every individual is in debt. Now, you can look at your bank account and say, well, I have that, my house is paid for, but you don't own anything. You don't own the money. The bank can take it from you at any time it wants. And the property, don't pay your taxes and see what happens. Okay? You don't own anything. So this system was built specifically to enslave. It has to be destroyed because it's so corrupt, and its original intent was wrong. It was diabolical.
Deception.
So it's going to crash. It'll be replaced with something backed by metals, by assets. This will be also a temporary system until we mature to a place where we're done with this. We don't need any kind of a system like this. We have a right to live because we're here. And every single one of us, we are all on our journey, and I don't need your permission to be on my journey. I don't need anybody else's permission to be on my journey. And we will get there. We will get there. And therefore, the system should be designed or built to support all of us on our journey. That's the only reason to create a system, is to support us, not to enslave. What idiot would create a system like that? And we didn't know. They very meticulously, over a long period of time, trapped us, changing the words, changing the meanings, and they gave us a heads up, but not enough of us were paying attention. Like you mentioned, changing the words. George Orwell's Animal Farm, where the pigs began changing the definitions of all the words, and everything changed. So they telegraphed, but most of us weren't smart enough to figure it out, or the professors and the school teachers, they supported the lie, they supported the lie.
Now everywhere, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Doctor, everybody, they're all supporting the lies.
They're all supporting the lie. Yeah. Even when they know themselves it's not true. Yeah.
Brings us back to character and integrity, doesn't it? Authenticity.
It's really scary. It's really scary. Yeah. Yeah. So.
Wow.
Where do you want to go from here?
Well, so I heard you say once before, maybe a couple of times before, silver is certainly something, not necessarily as an investment in terms of currency, but also as an investment because it's going to be widely looked for, right? You said
Well, a
for
lot
some
of
of
the new technologies that are going to be released, the 6,000 patents that have been suppressed, technology that's coming out from the special access projects, I don't know if you can really call it the secret space program anymore, but Space Force, okay, all those technologies, other type of technologies that have been suppressed. Silver is a huge component in the electrical manufacturing of those things. And silver will never be zero, nor will gold or platinum, any of those things. So old school, they always had a little bit of that tucked away for emergencies.
True enough.
It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. I have shared that with people for years, that they should have a little bit tucked away and to make sure that their pantry is always full. But that's just old school common sense. My grandfolks were like that. They always had a little bit tucked away, a little, gold or silver, because they went through the Depression and they saw money go to zero. Where a loaf of bread was $1,000. And you look at these third world countries, look at Zimbabwe, one of the wealthiest countries minerally in the world.
Yep.
$100 trillion note. You have got to be kidding me, right? Venezuela, one of the wealthiest mineral countries on the planet, $1 billion notes for a loaf of bread, which costs 55 cents to make.
Yeah. It's disgusting.
It is, but it was all control and manipulation.
And even now, they still do it. Look at the inflation.
Well, it's getting better, but yeah, they're working it.
Some of the territories, they've shown us pictures of like cases of water they're selling for like $80 a case of water. Like, excuse me? Crazy.
Right, and the planet's 2/3 water.
I know. Well, they sold all our lakes to Nestle up here, so we can't get water to the First Nations. Like, God forbid they should have clean drinking water or bathing water, even.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Isn't it interesting that they suddenly have the ability to give every single person on this planet a vaccine, but they can't deliver food to these same people, right? I mean, come on.
It's that's all diabolical, that whole thing.
Yeah.
Yes. And I know, and you're so gracious with your time with me today, Alex. I really appreciate it. I'm only going to ask you one more question. And I'm going to probably bug you for some more time another time, but
I'm good with that.
Evan, it's just wonderful chatting with you. You mentioned about, different things they've shown us along the way. I kind of feel like everybody's waiting for a big fat manila envelope with a big declassified sign stamped on it, and I kind of have this really strong feeling that that's not coming, that we've been red pilled all along. All the movies we've seen, George Orwell's publication, all of that stuff was red pill. There's truth in all of that as far as I'm concerned. And I think they've just kind of said, well, they're just not going to believe it. It's too outlandish, too outrageous, too crazy. We'll just tell them it's entertainment, but we won't tell them it's more than that. It's just that diabolical way of withholding the truth. Do you think that's possible all along the way we've been red pilled?
I do. The crumbs have been out there, and they've been dropped all along the way. It's just that so many people have been programmed and conditioned to give their power away. Um, you know, there are many people that unless they hear it from CNN, MSNBC, CBS, Fox News, whatever, or a government official, that it couldn't be true. And what they don't realize is all of them have been lying all along about virtually everything. You know, so you're here waiting for them to tell you the truth about how they've been lying to you all along. Good luck with that. You know, good luck with that. And you know, and I have, you know, I have some kids who, one in particular who thinks I'm clueless. And he hasn't got it. He's the one who doesn't have the clue, you know. And when I talk to him, I make him put one finger in his ear, and then I talk in this ear, hoping it bounces around before it goes out the other side, and he retains it for just a minute. You know, I kid you not. It's just like, you know. But you have to let them be who they are, and you have to allow them on their journey. And it's tough as a parent or as a friend or as a lover or you know, whatever, to see your friends who are like this, knowing that they're going to fall, that they're going to get slammed. But if they won't listen, there isn't much you can do. All you can do is love them unconditionally as they go on their journey, and encourage them on that 7th time that they get whacked to get back up the 8th time. That's all you can do, you know. And at some point you hope that they come and they stand beside you and say, all right, Dad, I'm ready to walk with you. I mean, that's all you can do, you know. And because we've all been there growing up, you know. Remember, Mark Twain said it best, you know, at 17 he thought his father was a complete idiot, and then at 21 he was amazed at how much his father had acquired in knowledge. You know.
Yeah.
And we've all been there.
I know.
It's just the way.
I have one. Both.
It's just the way.
They're so funny, right? Kids are.
Yes, they are.
They just nuts, right?
Yeah.
And my youngest is funny because he says to me, Mom, I can get the whole. I can get the virus stuff. I get the vax stuff. He says, okay, I can even get that maybe there's some sort of a leader in Illuminati. But when you start talking Satanism and, you know, what's happening to the kids and stuff, because I think you come a little unhinged. And I'm like, well, everybody gets it in stages. Everybody comes to it in stages. And you can't help.
But at least he's open enough. You know, maybe one of his friends starts telling him and saying, look at this. Then maybe he'll get it.
Well,
you know,
it's like,
I have another one who at Thanksgiving said across the table, you know, the planet's dying. And I'm like, no, it's not. And he goes, yes, it is. I go, no, it's not. You know, he goes, well, we're going to have to agree to disagree. And I said, well, anytime you want to have that conversation with the facts, I'll be more than happy to tell you that, you know, and show it to you. And of course, that's all the propaganda. The planet itself is actually expanding to hold more people. It's never been greener before than it is right now because of the carbon dioxide, which is causing more things to grow, which is producing more oxygen. It is just like, oh, you know, and it's because of the programming that they're getting in school.
oh, indoctrination.
And, you know, it just wears you down. It just wears you out, the stupidity, you know, the moronic behavior, you know, global warming. We're actually going into a mini ice age, just the opposite. So, and that's what I tell them. I said, whatever the media tells you, you believe the exact opposite. And that's the truth.
That's it. We live in a polar experience. Holy Hannah.
Yeah, I mean, the contrast couldn't be further from each other.
It's perfect. I don't know how many times I've said it lately, but you can lead the horses to water, Alex, and sometimes you can't make them drink. More times you want to drown them in it, but you certainly can't make them drink when they're not ready.
Right. And you want them to remember where the water is too, you know.
Back to it.
Yeah, don't go 2 blocks and die of thirst. come back to the water, knucklehead. You know,
It's there for us, right? Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Well,
Hell of a deal.
it has been an absolute honor, and I do
For me as well. For me as well.
thank you. I
Yeah.
truly appreciate your time. Any last minute messages, and where can we find you? What all can you offer us about your website and webinars? They're fabulous. I do recommend everybody sign up for the Friday deals. They're fabulous.
Well, we do this little webinar. You know, the main site is alexcollier.org, and that was put together by James Harkin, because, you know, 10 years ago, he started coalescing all the information because he didn't want it to get lost. I didn't know what to do with it. And like I was telling you earlier, I was one and done. And I continue to do that to this day. But, you know, he's running up behind me, and he's trying to preserve everything. So you can start there, and you know, I do one-on-ones, and you know, it's interesting about the one-on-ones. I didn't think anybody would do it. I'm like, who's going to want to talk to me? And I was wrong. But what's remarkable is that I'm talking to people who themselves are having absolutely remarkable experiences. And they want validation. They want to talk to someone who doesn't think they're crazy. And I'm like, well, you know, I know crazy. I've lived crazy here for quite some time now. So I'd be the last person to think you're nuts, you know, especially as many times as I've been called crazy. So it's remarkable. I'm having such a good time talking to people and meeting people. And so many people are not only having remarkable experiences, but they have profound wisdom themselves. And so we've been doing these webinars, and something that we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding a fourth one per month. And what we're going to do is we're going to be introducing people who are having these experiences and getting their foot in the door and presenting them to the world so that they can share their knowledge and their experiences. Because this isn't about me, this is about all of us. And since we have this platform, that's what we're supposed to do. And, you know, and that's what this new movement is about. Brighteon, Rumble, you know, many of these new platforms, it's giving people a fresh voice to share their experiences and to share the truth as they know it, as opposed to allowing the cabal to silence and censor the reality.
The truth.
And they're never going to win. They're simply never going to win. In fact, they're so stupid, they don't know when to quit. So they're going to go down. They're going to go down in flames. And yeah, I'm going to throw a Molotov cocktail on Facebook just because.
Looks good on them.
What a bunch of assholes. Oh my God. You know, and that was all CIA money to get that started. The first 400 million was CIA. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, guys, you know, you're going to take down all of humanity just so you can say you were right? What? You can't wrap your head around this kind of stupidity. You just cannot.
But stupidity seems to be the tool, right? Like that's the one
that well, manipulation, control, brainwashing, programming, yada, yada, yada. But I don't want you to get taken down. So I shouldn't be using those words.
That's okay. This is a private thing. So,
well, these things have a life of their own, you know.
I know. It's good. It's all good. And I would definitely be, I'd like to have an even further conversation about that kind of stuff with you, because there's so much more we can chat about for everything. Comments are coming up. Thank you so much for everything, Alex. And we do truly appreciate you and the work. We are so thankful and grateful that you've lasted as long as you have with the resilience you've had and haven't given up on us.
You and waking up. You and me both, actually.
So, you know, this program, this series of videos is going to be called To Thyne to Thyne own self be true, because that's my name, but and it seems to work for my guides and their word
Well,
stuff.
I wish you all the luck. And if you have trouble, if you have speakers that you want to talk to, and you can't reach them, let me know and I'll see if I can help you connect with them. I don't know everybody, but I probably know enough to be dangerous. Okay.
Right on. I appreciate that.
Oh,
Truly do.
sure.
God bless
Sure
you,
many of them
Alex.
would love to talk to you.
Absolutely wonderful. And we'll be in touch for sure.
Okay.
Well,
Awesome,
get a
guys.
hold of Alex and book your own one-to-one with him. He's phenomenal, as you well have figured out by now. Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Take care, my friend. God
All right,
bless. Bye-bye.
Brenda. Take care.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
You too.